Mark rewrote his team's deck at midnight. By Friday, nobody wrote conclusions anymore. Now, that's not a morale problem, it's a competency tax, and you're probably paying it too late. 6 months ago, Priya could pick a vendor without asking. Now she pings you before she picks a font. 71% of micromanaged employees say it hurt their performance. 85% say it destroyed their morale. I've diagnosed this exact failure in orgs from 40 to 300 people, and it always starts the same way. One director spent 3 hours fixing a slide deck his team had already reviewed twice. The next week, they sent him a blank deck with a sticky note that said, "You're going to rewrite this anyway." These are 4 symptoms. You'll spot the first 2 in your own team today, but the third is invisible even to good leaders, and it's the one quietly costing you your best people. Then I'll hand you the 4-step fix. Here's what most leaders don't see. Every time you override a decision, pre-approve a routine choice, rewrite something they already finished, the real damage isn't the delay. You're making a withdrawal from their judgment account, and it doesn't crash overnight. It bleeds out slowly. Your team doesn't need you as much as you think. They've learned to need you. That isn't because Priya got worse at her job. It's because experience taught her that her judgment gets over. This is learned helplessness at scale. When your actions stop changing the outcome, you stop trying, even when you'd win. That's not a psychology lecture. That's your Monday stand-up. They're competent professionals who've been systematically trained to stop using their competence. Here's the trap. The worse they perform, the more you intervene. The more you intervene, the worse they get. You think you're managing quality, but you're actually managing dependency. That is the competency tax. It's invisible, it's cumulative, and it's making your team dumber, one decision at a time. Here's what it looks like in practice, symptom by symptom. You believe you're being thorough. Here's what your team sees. Alex, senior engineer, chooses vendor A for the integration. His manager asks, "Are you sure?" So Alex switches to vendor B. 2 weeks later, the manager asks, "Why didn't they go with vendor A?" Alex doesn't know. He stopped forming opinions 6 months ago, and now he just waits for the question. And it's not just engineers. The sales rep who used to build her own outreach lists, now she waits to be told which segment to target. Same disease, different department. Priya drafts a client proposal on Monday and it needs your sign-off, then a peer review, then legal review. 2 days pass. The client already moved on. The proposal is dead before it ships. Next quarter, Priya doesn't start the draft until someone asks for it directly. She learned that initiative just creates work that sits in a queue and never gets approved. You think you're maintaining quality gates. Priya experiences a friction tax that punishes speed. Both of you are right about what happened, and that's exactly why nothing ships fast. This isn't slow employees. It's a queue with your name on every exit. If every gate needs you, the gate is the bottleneck, not the work. Here's the one that's the hardest to spot. The team runs a weekly stand-up. The managers join just to listen. Nobody surfaces blockers anymore. They perform status updates instead. 3 weeks later, the manager asks why nobody raises real issues. The team learned that his presence turns problem solving into performance review. So they stopped bringing problems. The stand-up started as 15 minutes of honest friction. Now it's 30 minutes of theater, and the manager alone doesn't know the script. He reads the silence as everything's fine. The silence actually means nobody trusts the room with the truth anymore. "Hey, quick question. What should we do about the client pushback?" The team was 10 minutes away from a recommendation. Now they wait for the answer instead. The manager just answered a question the team was qualified to answer, and they'll never finish that thought. They'll wait for him next time, and the time after that, and the time after that. Each one of these feels like collaboration, and each one is a small tax. Stack them up for 6 months, and here's what you've built. A team that can't function without permission, not because they're bad, but because you trained them to be. See, here's the cost nobody talks about. It isn't morale. It isn't burnout. Though both of those happen, the real cost is that you can no longer tell who on your team is actually good at their job. I call it competence camouflage. When you correct, rewrite, redirect, or finish everyone's work, the final result reflects your judgment, not their ability. Strong performers stop standing out. because their edge gets flattened by your uniform improvements. Weaker performers are artificially protected because your interventions hide their gaps. Nobody truly owns the outcome, so nobody develops. The whole team looks functional, but you can't evaluate, promote, or develop anyone accurately because you've been doing their thinking for them. You think you have a senior team. What you actually have is a group of talented people who've been conditioned to run every decision through your filter. After 2 years of this, you don't know who can actually lead. You only know who takes feedback well. 77% of controlled employees face burnout risk. Burned out workers are 2.6 times more likely to be job hunting. One study clocked worse sleep and elevated cortisol in controlled workers. Your management style is literally raising the stress hormones of your staff. Here's the self-fulfilling prophecy that should just terrify you. You see passivity, so you tighten control. The team becomes dumber, so you tighten control more. 6 months in, you look at your calendar and wonder why every decision still runs through you. It's because you built a permission system, and now you're the only one with the key. You didn't build a team, you built a dependency network, and you are the load-bearing server. When you go offline, the system crashes. That isn't a talent problem. It's a design problem. You built one override after another, and design problems have designs for fixing them. Most leaders try to fix this by letting go, but that backfires. The team doesn't know how to function without the permission system that you built. You don't need to trust more. You need to withdraw differently. Step 1. Name the decisions they already own. Write them all down. Not everything, just the routine choices they keep asking you about. The list, it's going to be longer than you think. When Priya asked me what font to use, I realized I'd been approving font choices for 3 years. That was the moment that I knew I was the problem. Step 2, set a cooling off period. When they bring you a decision, wait 24 hours before responding. If it's truly urgent, define what urgent means. Most things aren't. The first time I tried this, 3 out of 4 problems resolved themselves before I even opened Slack. The team already knew the answer. They just needed permission to use it. Now, step 3, let them be wrong in bounded ways. Pick one type of reversible decision per week and just commit to not touching it. I once let a team ship a feature I knew was the wrong approach. The boundary was simple. Reversible, contained blast radius, rollback plan ready. They learned more in 2 weeks of owning that failure than 6 months of me preventing it. Step 4, evaluate outcomes, not methods. Did the result work? Then stop there. If you're critiquing how they got there, you're micromanaging the process. Nobody cares if they took the scenic route as long as they arrive on time. The only exception is when the method creates a risk you can't absorb, because if it does, name that risk in advance and make it part of the boundary. Otherwise, let the scenic route stand. Your way isn't the only way that works. The goal is not to disappear. It's to become unnecessary most of the time. Your job isn't to be the smartest person in every room. Your job is to build rooms where smart people can do their jobs without you. That's the protocol. It isn't a framework. It isn't a culture initiative. It's 4 moves that stop the bleeding and let your team's judgment muscle grow back. Control doesn't scale. Clarity does. If you recognize your team in any of these 4 symptoms, you aren't a bad leader. You're a good leader who built a bad system. And that difference matters because only one of those you can fix before next Monday. Now, if this helped, hit subscribe. We fix this stuff every week. Now, get to work.